You're listening to Living in Spain podcasts with David Wright.
Hi, my name's David Wright and welcome to another one of my podcast shows. On today's show I'm going to be talking about banks and getting money to buy properties here in Spain or financing projects here. How you can get the best deals out of your banks here in Spain. So this will be my 20th year here now, living and working in Spain. And in that time I've bought and sold several properties, I've bought some land and I've built my own house here in Spain. So here's my tips and advice on how you can get the best deals out of your bank. Something to remember here, banks are all a business. They just want what they can get out of you, the maximum amount of money that they can earn out of you. That's it. So once you remember that, you need to go round and check all the banks. Go round and get mortgage advice and quotes from several banks. I always recommend at least 3 banks, 4 or 5 is a good idea. Now this does take some time, it's a bit of a hassle and it can be stressful here if you're not very good at speaking Spanish. So you always take somebody with you. When you first go to a bank and you tell them that what you want to buy here and the money that you need, roughly amount of money you need, they're all going to try and get the best deals out of you. So you want to ask them what is the best deal that they can give you because you've been advised by some other banks. Don't tell them what, just tell them that to start with. Once you get your first quote here, get something in writing, some figures from that bank, and then take that to the second and third banks, seeing if they can get a better deal than what the first bank has given you. If you do get a better deal, then take that piece of paper to the next bank and go on so on and so on until you get the really good deal here. Now, don't speak to the assistants in the bank, always speak to the bank manager. It's very important that you speak to the bank manager because the assistants, however helpful you may think they are, they're not the ones that can do the deals. It's only the bank managers that can give you these best prices and best deals. I've been with a bank here some time, probably about 5 or 6 years, and we had a mortgage with them at the time, and I wanted to buy a piece of land to build a house, and they wouldn't really give me the deal that I was looking for, and they made things a little bit difficult. So I went to another bank. I asked them if we changed everything over, would they be interested in my new account and giving us a mortgage? The first 2 or 3 banks said no, they weren't really interested. Then I found a bank that said they would be interested. If we changed everything over, that's all your direct debits, the money going in and out your banks, things like that. So they're earning money on that. Then you need to look into the penalties. Some banks here charge penalties for changing accounts or setting up new accounts. So you've got to weigh this up. Is it worth it in the long run? Most of the times it is worth it, but you need to get your figures right. Before I bought my land here and built the house, I was looking to get another house and I needed a mortgage for that. So I went to a bank and they gave me an amount, which was pretty good really. I was quite happy with it. But I thought I'd just go and check another bank. And I was really surprised that another bank was willing to give me an even better deal and the terms for the payments was over a longer period of time. So I did go to this other bank. It was hassle closing down my account and transferring everything over, but worth it because my monthly payments would be cheaper and the bank charges for cancelling an account and opening up the new account weren't as bad as I originally thought. Now by going to the bank managers you can do deals on this. If you're transferring everything over, sometimes they will cut these costs or even waiver the costs for transferring over completely. So yeah, it is stressful, it is a lot of time, you need to traipse around the banks to do this and it can take sometimes days to do this. But it's worth setting aside 2 or 3 days just to spend the time doing this, have a little rest between time, go and have a drink, have some tapas. But guys, it will really save you thousands in the long run and it's worth doing. Even if you don't need a mortgage on a property here, I would advise that you do get a mortgage because the banks do better checks. If you're buying a property in Spain, you might not need to get a mortgage. You might have the money from a sale in the UK or wherever else to fund the project completely. But the banks will not do the amount of checks and the solicitors may not be as thorough if it was a bank that had an investment in you. So by having even a small mortgage, the banks are liable for that. So they will do more in-depth checks, therefore protecting your investment as well as theirs. Now remember, there's no penalties here of most of the banks for paying off a mortgage early. So personally, I've had a couple of mortgages here that were 5 or 10 years and I paid them off after the first year or 2 years at no extra costs. At least this way I know that the property is all legal, above board, and the banks have done their checks, even though I did my own personal checks on top of that. If you're looking for money from a bank, and a loan of some kind or a mortgage to do maintenance on the property, maybe upgrading a kitchen or put an extension or a bathroom on, again the same thing applies. Shop around for the banks. You don't even need this loan or this mortgage from the same bank as your own bank. You can go to a different independent bank and ask them to give you some deals and some quotes, some prices at least. And then maybe you might even want to change everything over and keep it all complete under one roof. Several years ago I had an apartment here and I bought a second property to rent out. And I got another mortgage from a different bank, so they were completely independent. And later on, when I sold the first property, I changed everything over to the second bank. So it's a bit of a game here. You have to play one off against the other. Some banks will not be interested at all in doing this and might make it awkward at first. But if you push them and get the right manager, they want your business and they are happy to take on new accounts. And there is some subsidies and offers they can offer new clients, which maybe your own bank will not be able to do. Something else very important here, if you've sold a property, say in the UK, and you're coming here to buy a property, whether you've got a mortgage or not, be very, very careful in the months that you're going to buy that property. If it's in the tax year, the first 6 months of the Spanish tax year, then you will probably be liable to pay tax on the property that you've bought and the property that you've already sold in the UK, even though you've paid your tax in the UK. So you can end up paying tax twice here in Spain. So be very careful, and I always recommend you seeking professional advice from a financial advisor here that's registered here in Spain, not in the UK, because it is different here in Spain. And I will leave a link in the description box below this podcast where you can get access to my experts that I use to get proper financial advice on this. I have spoken to somebody a little while ago that bought a property here and they were very unaware of this and they ended up paying a lot of money twice on the tax for the property that they sold in the UK. If they just waited another couple of months before they bought the property here in Spain, they would have saved themselves thousands. So check and double check. It could save you a lot of money. If you're having work done here on an extension or new build and you've borrowed money from the bank for this, make sure that the money that the bank is giving you is in a separate account and that money is accessible by you at any time. When I bought a property here some time ago, the bank set a time for this, for the money to be used. And they also needed an assessor to come and check it to see how much money I had spent before they released the next amount. They also did this on my new house build. When I bought a plot of land to build a house here, the bank said that they would need to set a time scale for me to do the build. And they recommended a year and a half more or less. They said that was average. And I was allowed up to 3 years. So I settled on 2 years. Now at the time that sounded like a long time. But with the COVID restrictions and some of the other building problems we had here, it wasn't enough time. And 2 years was a real struggle for me to get it done within that 2-year bracket. Now if you don't set a time limit here, sometimes the bank put this in writing and if you're not very careful you might miss it. And a year sounds a long time sometimes, like the 2 years did for us, but it goes very fast if you have any problems or setbacks at all. Maybe you have some health issues and you can't get it done or you're off sick or something like that. Or like with us, with the COVID restrictions, it made it difficult. So the last 6 months was a real struggle for us to meet the time limit and get it done within the 2 years that the bank said. Also, the bank had told us that we would have access to the money that was in a separate account which we could draw to use for buying materials and pay costs here. This wasn't the case. Later on we found out that they needed to send an assessor for each step of the build. That meant every few months they would send somebody up from the bank who didn't really know much about building here, I must say, and they said that they would need to check out everything and then we had to wait 2 weeks for them to release a set amount, and this was around 10 or 12,000 each time. This was nowhere near enough to pay for the materials and the labour on the work that we had already done, so we ended up subsidising each stage of the build on our own, which was another financial risk. So make sure if you're doing this, if it's a project, an extension or a new build, that you can have this money accessible to you, the amount you need when you want it, and get it in writing, not just a verbal agreement from the bank. This needs to be clear that you can draw this money when you want. And how long have you got to build the property or to do the extension? Again, very important. If you don't meet these deadlines, the bank can stop all correspondence and start proceedings against you to take back the property or what you've done to recuperate their investment. So as again, really getting proper advice from experts here is the way to go before you start on these projects and before you even borrow any money from the bank. And we've got some very good top financial advisors here that can help you free of charge. They will ask you some questions and you can tell them what you're planning and they can give you some free advice. There's a link in the description box below this podcast where you can access all the experts that have helped me over my 20 years here. So I hope this information has been of value to. If it has, please just leave a like or a quick comment. Thanks very much for listening and adios.
If you have enjoyed this podcast by David Wright, then you will love his new books. Out now on Amazon and Kindle, packed with money-saving tips and information on living and working in Spain. Just go to livinginspainbooks.com. David also has a popular blog for expats in Spain. Come and take a look now at BritishExpatsInSpain.com.